Like to call the Real Estate Committee meeting June 8th, 2022 at 1:10 to order. Machines open for roll call. Let the record show Mr. Bartholomew and myself are present. Gui and LaFrance are absent. New business. Can't nominate anybody. Don't have nobody here. Discussion about the available parish property. Have any updates for us?
We've had a couple calls on Port Eads. So if you could, at the next parish council meeting, maybe put that on the agenda as to begin advertising for an operator for Port Eads, that would be great.
I thought we put it out for lease already, if somebody wanted to lease it, or?
No, we didn't. It has to, the only thing that was out for lease was the Popich building, if I'm not mistaken. At least that's the only thing I saw. So we'd like to begin with two operators that are very, very interested in leasing the facility. We have obviously some issues we have to work with, cleanup and insurance and things like that, but there is interest. So while we have that interest, we'd like to proceed with an advertisement for solicitation for an operator.
Could we get the people to come in front of us and give us a presentation?
Well, we could, but I mean, I think to be fair to anyone that's interested, I think we need to offer that publicly to anyone. And then I think at that point, we could ask them to make a presentation to the council or the council's real estate committee, whatever you choose. But we'd like to proceed on that one immediately.
Can you make a introduction on that?
So,
And can we know who they are?
sure. Well, the former operator, for one, is interested, and then the other operator is a gentleman by the name of Bart Haddad, and he's in the business globally, and his specialty is fly fishing adventures. So he's been pushing hard to move something, to get something going. So again, while we have interest, let's do it.
But the first group, I think cleanup, they should clean up.
Well, I mean, we could make that a part of the advertisement / RFQ for operators.
The way they left it,
Well, I'm not sure how they left it. I only saw it after Ida, so I wasn't.
I seen it before, and they just took couches and all that they didn't need and threw them over the rail into the marsh.
I didn't. Of course, I didn't see that, but I mean, that's something we need to take a look at.
All right.
So,
Anything else?
we at our last count.
Before you move on,
Sure.
I think there should be a minimum amount of money that we should ask for as a starting mechanism for the rental. That's what you're talking about, renting police?
Yes, that's correct.
And that includes their responsibility to put it back in operation.
Right.
And we should lease it as is with understanding a minimum amount of money that we're looking for.
That's correct. That's right. We have not done that assessment as yet because the challenge is going to be who does the cleanup. If the cleanup and the repair, because essentially all of the systems would likely have to be replaced. And if the operator is going to do that, then you would negotiate a lower lease rate in the beginning, and then it would go up. And then that's the first thing. And the second thing is going to be the issue of insurance. As you know, that previously when it was operating, there was a nonprofit that was in the middle between the parish and the operator, and the insurance, which gave the parish some, I guess you could say, a buffer. But since that nonprofit was dissolved, the parish is going to have to decide whether it's going to self-insure or how the insurance is going to be handled.
The nonprofit didn't have insurance.
I'm not sure if it did or it didn't. I'm just saying that if they were going to take any legal action, it would have gone, since they were they basically had, I guess you could say like the management agreement with the parish, who then, the nonprofit then leased it to the operator. So again, you had an entity in the middle.
I think that was just a way to get around the advertising of leasing the property.
Yeah. Well, I know, Benny, that was your deal.
Wait, what my deal? No, let me say this, that was exactly right. They created a nonprofit to get away from the advertisement process, because they said that they could go ahead and do it. So they leased it to a nonprofit who turned around and leased it for a profit. And, I wasn't part of any of that deal.
We collected no money.
The parish got zero for 5 years. And when the profit margin evidently went down for the profit company, they walked away and they dumped it on us. And now we've been here for several years with nothing happening. The issue was always, we have no access to the marina because the pass has to be dredged. We got the pass dredged. It's fully operational now as far as the water depths. And I've been hearing about people being interested now for months and months, but we have not made any progress whatsoever on trying to put this into commerce. But it wasn't my deal, I'll be clear about that.
Okay.
I know I went after the storm and the docks piled up with
Debris.
cane debris.
Yeah, we went down there, about 2 months ago.
Yeah, we surveyed them.
Yeah, and we went through all the buildings, and yes, the docks are full of those reeds and all that stuff, so that's going to have to be a part of the process.
Now, when did y'all was the doors locked?
Yes.
Because it was locked when
No, the doors were locked.
I heard they've been open since.
I can't answer that, but I mean, the administration was supposed to go back down there and
The docks.
and clean, or at least clean the docks off and that sort of thing. I don't know if they've done that thus far.
I don't know neither, so.
All right, I'll find out. But either way, I think if you would, at the next council meeting, if you could just direct, say, a resolution to begin an advertisement for solicitation of bids for an operator for the facility.
We could do that today. We'll do it today.
Okay.
We get out of here early enough.
Mr. Chairman, Paul, you and I know each other well now. What are you actually marketing? What are you trying to accomplish right now? I hear you, 2 people have been looking at this thing, but I still don't know, what are you proposing to these people, to anybody that wants to come along and look at the site?
I'm not proposing anything at the moment because I'm not authorized to. So the proposal,
Developing interest.
right.
Well, what is the people that are talking about using this stuff, what are they talking about, using it for what?
Well, essentially what they were using it for, as a base
Fishing and
operation for
hydrolage.
a fishing.
I mean, these people we're talking to, I mean, do they have the capabilities to do this, the financial wherewithal and the experience
Yes.
to promote it?
Yes. Particularly Bart.
I'm sorry?
Bart Haddad.
What was the name? I didn't get him.
Bart Haddad. I'm trying to think of the name of it.
What does he do now?
It's what he does. It's all he does.
What?
A global fishing operation, charter fishing operation. And their specialty,
What's the closest ones he's got to us here? We're the fishing capital of the world.
right.
I mean, I don't know, he's never been here before, I've never heard his name before.
I have not done any of the research.
See, I'm like Mark. This is such preliminary stages. Let him come in and talk to him. Make some presentation, make some ideas of what's going on with this thing. Look, Parish has got $16 million tied up in this thing, and has seen zip for years. And we'd like to have something done with it, but yet at the same standpoint, not another pie in the sky. We already got a port with that problem with the railroad. We don't need another railroad to Port Eads.
Well, if we're going to do that, at the very least, we need to, pick a certain day and a certain time, anyone that has contacted us, 3 groups that have contacted us, go down there and let them walk through the facility. I think they need to see that facility before Don, before they can make any presentation or discussion with the council.
I mean, you and I have done real estate deals before, and I
Sure.
finance them all. We know it. We're not anywhere near them making a decision on what to do with it. I mean, these people got to determine what they can use it for, the highest and best use, and make some recommendations and proposals to this committee, if they still continue the committee, or to the full board.
Agreed. I can't disagree with that.
But I mean, we've been dicking around with this property for a long, long time. It's been out there. Everybody knows about it. And
But it's only, I think the big difference is South Pass has been dredged.
it's dredged,
That's the key.
but it's been dredged for a year.
Now it's in a position where if someone is in that business, they could utilize that and start an operation there. So none of the folks that have contacted us are startups. All of them are already in the business. So this would be an additional.
In your opinion, having seen it and been in the real estate business down here longer, what do you think is the highest and best use for it?
I think exactly what it was used before.
'Cause I could tell you, looking for insurance on a house in Burris, that's uninsurable.
That's exactly right. That's why I mentioned it earlier. The insurance is going to be an issue, and we just need to figure that one out. But that's a constraint going in. Everyone's going to know that that's a challenge.
That's a given. And it's not,
Yeah.
it's not an if, it's just given.
No question. No question.
I mean, if these guys are in
They'd
the
be willing
business,
to buy it.
Did you say, would these people be interested in buying it? I can ask them. I think if that's the case, then as a part of this resolution this afternoon, you should declare it surplus. So that's an option.
I got a couple properties to do that in Burris and Boothville.
Yeah, well, then as a part of that, here, get your mic.
On a purchase of that, of Port Eads, there could be some issues because the Coast Guard owns a piece of that as well.
Right.
But they don't want the lighthouse, I could tell you that.
Well, but they seem to hold on to it. I mean, when when we've spoken to others who were there in the past, the Coast Guard is very reluctant to divest itself of the property. I don't know why, but it's just the way it is.
We could get our,
Yeah, we need a title attorney to take a look at it to see how, in fact, that could be handled. So insurance and title are going to be the two biggest issues on this one.
yes.
Yeah, we've been through this for years now. We understand that we do not own all of the property. We don't know how exactly FEMA was able to go ahead and invest all of this money on the property. Somebody signed a document that said we owned it. Obviously, we don't own it all. And so we've had this discussion for years now. So as far as the clear title, we don't have it. The gentleman's right, and we're not going to get it. So, rather than whipping this horse some more, I think we ought to come to just a basic understanding. When we first employed Mr. Reshaw, we thought that's the direction we were going to market some of the properties. And here today we are having the very same discussion. So when you talk about declaring something as surplus property, why are we declaring it surplus property unless we intend to sell it and we can't sell it? So, I would suggest that we come up with some parameters, and we've done this in the past, to say that we want to market the property, and we are accepting proposals to put this property in commerce with a very broad definition of whatever it's going to be, and accept proposals to be able to see whoever comes with the best proposal for consideration with the right to reject all proposals, and at least get a feel for what the market is of what we want to do with the property. Because if we sit here and talk about, the best, highest, and best use, we might not even know what the highest and best use is, that somebody else out there in the world looks at it from a different perspective. So I don't know what more you need to put an advertisement out. It seems like we can't get anybody to even put up a for rent or for lease sign anywhere around here. And that's something that I've been advocating for quite a long time, just to put a for lease sign to see what kind of fish we can draw in, even for this property. And I don't think there's any effort on behalf of the administration to accomplish these goals. And I have very little faith that we are going to accomplish any of these goals by the end of the year. You know, you mentioned the Popich building. The Popich building, we've asked to lease that for a year or 2 years. Finally, we're leasing it to Venture Global by no effort of anybody around here, but by Venture Global coming to us and saying we'd like to have the second floor. So, I mean, you know, we're doing things by accident is what we're doing and how we're operating. So I wish the committee well. I wish you some success. I see very little.
Well, we can't even get the people to come to a meeting, so I don't know how much longer this committee's gonna last, but I agree with Mr. Roussel. Here the administration's building a quadplex, and I've brought it up to them numerous times that if you go to Gulfport, there's numerous quads in this one area.
Sports complex, Sportsplex.
But there's hotels, restaurants next door. That's why people's gonna go there. They're not gonna drop their kids off and go fishing in Venice or go to the French Quarter. They go to them quads and they sit with their kids and they watch them play ball. They don't have to go anywhere else but there. They stay there, they eat there. And Mr. Roussel brought it up numerous times to rent out this property along the road right here. If a restaurant or anything, a hotel wants to get out on F. Edward Hebert. But like he said, there's no for rent signs nowhere.
Okay. We're happy to do that, and we'll do that. We just need to figure out at what price. So that'd be a discussion that we're going to have. And I mentioned at our last meeting, I think the parish needs to decide what is the potential uses of these properties. What's acceptable, or do we just advertise and whatever comes up, and then you make a decision accordingly? So, I mean, you got sports in the back, you know, the sheriff's moving in the front, parish is in the front. Surely you have a lot of land. There wasn't any real money spent on making that an entertainment complex for Hogs for the Cause. But I mean, now you have that set up. Do you continue that?
They won't be back.
No, they're not coming back. That's a given. We've already talked to them.
And how much did we make off of that?
Probably
How
nothing.
much it cost us? Cost us a lot more than we made.
Right. I would assume that it did. But frankly, though, had it not rained, I think it would have been a whole different story. The rain really made a huge difference.
The Hogs for the Cause would have made more money.
Sure.
The parish didn't make anything because nobody came here to come to that event, went to any restaurant to eat, stayed at a hotel. They drove in and drove out.
Right. Okay. All right, well, you will see some lease signs. I'm just let you know, we're going to put it right at the front gate.
That's fine.
So when people see it, just let them know that it is for lease. Now, getting back to Port Eads, I didn't mention sale, you did. Is that do you think that should be a consideration?
If we can't sell it, we can't sell it.
Okay. All right. Okay. Going back to our last meeting, we had talked about the possibility of creating a real estate development fund, or at least a line item, so that any revenues from any of this, including the Popich building, would go into a fund which would essentially, over the long term, underwrite the movement of those parish entities that are near the tomato shed, and those monies would be used specifically to underwrite the movement of those parish entities into the government complex. And as I've said in the last meeting, the area around the tomato shed is really probably some of the most valuable real estate that you own because it has the potential for development. And we mentioned the possibility of a riverfront district, which would essentially from the yeast plant all the way to the, right on the other side of Sun Oil. That whole strip there is, I think, very ripe for development, particularly given its river frontage. So we had talked at the last meeting about declaring all of those surplus, not necessarily to sell, but you're in a position that if any of those entities, any of those parish entities move, then we could start either attempting to lease and/or sell, if that's the parish's will, those particular properties. So that would be the area right on the other side of the Croatian Community Center, or whatever it's going to be. So what's the thought, the thinking of the parish council on those properties?
Who brought up that zone that,
The riverfront?
Yeah.
We did. The river, just creating a riverfront district. I mean, essentially at this point it would be lines on a map, but ultimately it could become a tax increment financing district, because if you create retail opportunity and you generate sales tax, an increment of that sales tax could be used to underwrite infrastructure development in order to attract the kind of developers that would go into that area. That was strictly a suggestion and a recommendation on our part. And you know, we won't do anything unless the parish says at least pursue the idea, but we still would like to put that on the table for
How much of the land do we own? We don't own all of it.
just the tomato shed, the
Yeah.
lockup,
Talking
and the
about riverside,
DAs.
you're talking about by the
That's
river.
it.
Yeah, that's it, really, on from essentially the ferry ramp over from Maine to the river. I would think it's about, I want to say it was,
4.5.
yeah, I think it was about 4.5 acres from the last time we checked.
Don't we own from the lower side of the water plant now to the,
Yeah, you do, there's that little vacant piece that would, but
we paid
while that,
about 900,000 for it?
yeah, that could be included. We, you know, the assemblage is a nice assemblage on the other side of the ramp itself, but we could certainly include that, what was, like now, I think just a parking lot. But I think that has some real potential. And if the good folks or the family that owns the yeast plant and almost everything else on the other side of the tomato shed, if they would at least give consideration, they don't have to sell it. They just need to participate in development, either put up the property for development as a joint venture or what have you. But that's an enormous amount of riverfront land right in the bend, and that could become a true retail center at that point. We also see the potential for apartments, and I know that's sometimes a bad thing, sometimes a good thing. But what we do think could go there on the other side of the tomato shed would be apartments that are restricted to seniors. You know, it's a 55 plus. So, you know, that's different from apartments. I mean, when you look at the number of folks or employees that Venture Global is going to generate, they got to come from somewhere and they got to live somewhere. So at this point, you don't have the housing to accommodate the number of folks that would be working at that facility. So at some point, we probably need to take a look at, you know, how do you accommodate the housing demand that will be created by, you know, multi-billion-dollar facility.
From what I'm hearing, the people already live here, some of the big dogs that they're gonna be hiring, so
Yeah, I'm just talking about the workers, not the big dogs. I
they're
mean,
gonna have permanent work because they're not having that many.
not many. I don't know the particulars, but that's a development that, if it's possible to leverage it into additional development in Plaquemines Parish. That would be the thinking. So back to the real estate development fund. Is that something that the parish would consider?
Have to talk to the other council people.
Okay. What about the idea of a river district? Should we pursue that or just sit on that one?
Got to talk to them about that too.
Okay. All right. And then the last thing we talked about was the adjudicated properties. Those properties that the parish own as a function of tax adjudication. It's a pretty big list, and obviously those titles are going to have to be reviewed because of the what's the word I'm thinking? You can redeem. You could redeem the property if you owe back taxes. You can redeem those taxes, and the property essentially can't be sold because there's a title flaw. And no title insurance company will write over that. So we just need to assess which of the adjudicated properties that is in the parish possession now could be sold immediately, and which ones we need to work on once you get past the 3-year remediation stage. Kind of track those so that as they are not redeemed, you can put those on for sale, which would be in addition to what you are going to bring up today, those properties in Buras and Boothville. We could do a public sale all at one time for those that are eligible to be sold currently. So that's something that I've talked to Renee about it, and we've talked to Bayou Title, which is up the street in Gretna, and to see if they would consider some sort of wholesale analysis of the current adjudicated property, so we could determine which ones are sellable.
We get a list of those?
Yeah, I have a list that Rennie gave me, but I don't know how current it is. But sure, I'll ask Rennie for a copy of the list, and then I'll send it to Kim, and Kim can distribute it accordingly. So that's pretty much all I had on that carryover from my last meeting.
Paul?
Yeah.
Paul, the last time we had a committee meeting, we talked about an outside third-party company to dispose of those properties that have
Correct.
been done.
Civic Sources.
I'm sorry?
Civic Source is what we were talking.
Civic Source has been doing it in Orleans, Jefferson. They did it for us when I was on the Louisiana Land Trust Board. They're probably more capable than anybody else, and the
correct.
facts and the fees are structured there. And rather than us getting into the business of doing it and dealing with our own people, it's simple enough just to identify them, let them market them, and fit within the scope of it.
That was the plan.
Okay?
No, you're absolutely right.
The thing is, though, we've been talking about it. I don't know how many properties we own. I guess somewhere along the lines we got to figure out. You have adjudicated properties, and then you have the properties that came back from road home.
Right.
There's two different things and two different goals of it. The road home properties were identified by Louisiana Land Trust, by Mike Taylor's legal staff, and determined that we had clear title to those properties, and could they be disposed of with clear title? That was being the problem. A lot of properties in the rural districts, the parishes that we had throughout the state, was so old and passed down from people in probably a pretty predominant poor neighborhood that it's been transferred without any title transfers and legal steps. It's just mama gave me this and grandmother gave me this, and that's how it worked. And nobody has title, and everybody's going to dispute it. There's no sense us spinning our wheels with all these properties. The biggest thing is you identify what we call the lot next door program. If anybody's got any interest in the properties, first off. And you afforded those properties to those people within the community to improve their own properties, and then you go on to third-party sales of it. And you put some restrictions on these properties as what can be done with the properties as far as usage in there. Because we all don't want another junkyard on the other side of another neighbor. So there's a lot of restrictions. You got to be careful when you dispose of these properties.
Oh, yeah.
The Civic Force knows that very well. I can tell you, I've dealt with them. I've bought properties from them. I've bid on them. It's this whole thing about percentages is screwed up. You either buy the whole thing or you don't buy it. And the redemption thing is a real problem down the road. But I'd hire an outside lawyer for that. He gets paid out of the proceeds.
That's correct.
You're not paying them any more money. You don't want to hire somebody, but they get paid out of the proceeds. So that's been done before. That's on what
I
it's
agree.
worth.
The properties I'm doing or people came to me wanting them next door. The people want to buy them, so that's why I'm doing them.
All we got to do is put something in the newspaper, you know.
Well, I got to do them as surplus property.
Right,
first.
that's correct.
Any other items?
That was everything I had on my list.
Have a motion to adjourn?
We have
Wait,
minutes to.
you-
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you're going to make the list? You're going to provide us with a list of the properties that you want to declare surplus, or are you going to do that at the council?
Yeah.
You got them here? Okay, good. All right,
Give them to you.
okay, good.
Do I have a motion to accept the minutes from the last meeting? I'll second. Machines are open. Passes 2-0. Motion to adjourn. Motion by Mr. Bartholomew, I'll second. It passes 2-0. Meeting's adjourned at 1:40 PM.